Well, you are listening to Freedom Wranglers. Welcome back, everybody who is a regular listener. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're so excited that you have chosen to give us a chance and check out Freedom Wranglers. We have a very special guest, and her name is Karie. Karie is a very dear friend of mine. And just a little bit of background, Karie and I worked together at a company here in Jacksonville, and I was a newbie. She wasn't too long into her position. I think about a month maybe prior to me,
About
something
a month,
like
month
that.
and a half,
Yeah. So we've known each other for like 13 years, I think we worked out the other day. And it's great. But she's one of those people that, I'm sitting in my cubicle. I am not the most extroverted person when it comes to new situations. And so I kind of just get my head down and do my work. And this little nose and eyes pop up over my cubicle and it's like, hey, what's your name? What are you doing? And before I knew it, we became very dear friends. And so, we've been through lots of different things together, but I think that the journey we're going to talk about today is probably the sweetest part of our relationship. For me, I know it is probably the most exciting, but so anyways, that's kind of the backstory to Karie and I. Now I think we've got a couple of different things going on. So we've got like South Carolina, Karie, and we've got South Carolina, Jamie, right?
Yeah, we got some South Carolinians in here.
Yeehaw.
What am I doing in the middle of all this? Who knows?
You the monkey in the middle.
I will be the monkey in the middle. No problem. Do not expect any monkey sounds from me or gestures. It's funny you say that, just totally sidetracking. We play a lot of Mario Kart in my house, and the character I choose is Donkey Kong. So maybe that's very suitable for me. I don't know. But Karie, we're super excited to have you on here and just for you to share some highlights of your testimony and your relationship with Jesus. So we're going to kind of jump on in here. Now, Jamie, I think that you had some stuff you were going to go with, girl. Go.
Yeah, well, I was just, where are you originally from? I know that's a silly question because we just pretty much introduced you to.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you mean originally. So I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But when I was about 6 months old, we moved to my mother's hometown up in Dillon, South Carolina. So a very small town up there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm from Dillon, South Carolina, but I live in Jacksonville, Florida now. So.
Okay. So she's a South Carolina Floridian girl too. She's got it all.
Yeah.
We're both hats.
Yeah. I think I moved to Florida back when I was
Southern girl.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I think I was 12 going on 13 when we moved to Florida.
Okay.
So
Okay,
the summer before I turned 13, or the summer of turning 13. I don't anyway.
That wonderful summer of 13.
Yeah.
Not like the summer of 69 with Bryan Adams, right?
I had my younger years in South Carolina, my teenage years in Florida, and my adult years in South Carolina.
Cool.
And now in Florida.
You kind of been like 50-50, like kind of
50-50,
splitting it up, Yeah, that's
either
cool.
one or the other. I'm not in between.
And the reality is that, let's just be real, Jacksonville, especially the part of Jacksonville I live in, is really just southern Georgia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We are so close to the border, and it's funny. It was real funny for me when I moved down here. People have an accent, and I'm like, why do you all talk like this? This is not Florida, because I grew up living down in South Florida, like Melbourne, so you don't get this twang that you get around here. And I'm in an area called Ocean Way, so we call it OW. They even have their own little, they have stickers for OW. It's real.
Do they?
They do.
I live here.
Special.
You lived here how long, and you didn't know we had OW stickers?
I did not know. Yeah, I didn't know all that stuff.
It's so funny. Well, we're here to talk about Jesus. So, Karie, in growing up, did you have an introduction to Jesus, introductory to salvation and what all that was when you were growing up as a kid at any point in your life? Were you raised in a Christian home?
Yeah, so I used to go to church a lot with my grandmother when she was around. We went to this little small old white church up in some woods on a country road back there. So I
Just painted
remember
white,
that,
right? It was
just
just a
painted
painted
white.
white.
Yeah, just painted white. And um, so yeah, I remember going there, but honestly, I don't remember a lot of teachings,
Mhm.
during that time. But I just remember going with my grandmother, and that was all that mattered to me. Because at that time, she was my best friend. Obviously, I
Mhm.
had best friends, but she was my best friend. That's who I spent the weekends with.
Mm.
So, and then later on, when I was about 12 years old, and well, yeah, 12 years old, I think it was 1989. Went to a church with a friend of mine that lived next door, and I got saved. And, at that moment, I was a little lost because the year prior had lost my grandmother, my grandfather and my mother about 6 months apart.
Mm.
2 years before that, I had lost my grandmother, and that was really hard. So I was a little lost. So church at that time kind of gave me that feeling of belonging because, at that time my life was uprooted, just
Mhm.
less than a year before I was, left the home that my mother built, left my friends that I'd known all my life because where we moved to was an hour and a half away. So,
Wow.
being 11, 12 years old, it's, you can't just get up and go and see your friend Chanda, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right.
yeah, so I was introduced then. It was a safe space for me at that time for, the whirlwind that I was going through
Mm.
at that moment in my life.
Now, did you say was that a friend of yours that invited you to church, or how did that
Yeah,
transpire?
she lived next door to me. We were living in an apartment, and I just remember one day her asking, well, you want to go to church with me? And
Mm.
so, because I remember every Sunday they would go to church, and I would be at home, kind of
Mhm.
bored without my friend there.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, so I went, and I remember, we always sat in the front pew, and they had little rooms for you to go into to do the Lord, the prayer. So I
Mhm.
remember going in there and doing the Savior prayer and all that, and
Mm.
sitting with the pastor, and you know, I don't know. It was a moment of peace for me, and
Mhm.
of course, outside of the church, it was everywhere. I was a little lost, not
Mhm.
knowing, you know, yeah, there was a lot going on in my life at that time, a lot of losses.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's amazing how God immediately brings us peace when we enter into his presence. I think that
yeah,
that's something that you just like you ultimately described there. It was just that comfort that you get in the belonging. How many people want to belong? It doesn't matter how old
Mhm.
they are. I mean, you're like, 12 years old, roughly, I guess.
yeah,
And you're looking at this and it's like you just want to belong. Family was so important, and family is getting pulled away from you, but
yeah,
you find that family within church,
yeah.
and
And
so
and at that age, you don't really understand a lot of things. Like you don't
mhm,
understand the feelings you're going through. Like by the time my mother passed away, yes, I knew what death was, but I didn't really comprehend the whole scenario of, oh my
mhm,
gosh, now they're all gone.
mhm,
And
mhm.
it's not that I didn't love my dad, but I live with my mom, and now here I am living with my dad, and going to a whole new school, whole new people,
Mhm.
and it's a lot for a 12-year old, to
Uh,
go through.
Oh, absolutely. It must have been such an unbelievable, you know, transition for you. And so in that transition, do you feel that you were able to get rooted in your relationship with God, or do you feel like that was something that was for that season in your life that kind of gave you some, you know, grounding and solidified, hey, I'm still loved, I can still be a part of something, and where did that all
Yeah,
go
I
for you?
think it was a season for me, honestly. Now looking back, I hate to say that, but at that time, it was just God was what I needed at that moment, and I felt peace. But being 12 years old, it could have just been that I was rolling with whatever made me feel good. Because at 12, I
Mhm.
don't again, you don't understand your feelings very well. You're not quite in touch with you know with that kind of stuff. So for me, I think it was just a season of God just trying to let me know that, hey, I'm here, everything's going to be okay, and I've got my tissues, so if I start crying, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Hey, I'm with
But
you. I'd
yeah,
probably start crying with you, honestly.
It must be a
but
South Carolinian thing. You both, you're like, boo hoo,
it
and I'm
is
going, and I'm over here like,
emotional.
what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? I
That's
But
feel you.
yeah,
okay.
so
I
I
feel
do
you.
think it was just a seasonal thing for me at that time, because honestly, after that, I don't really even remembering what I had learned, or anything of that sort. Because I don't remember learning verses and stuff like
Mm,
that. I just remember I remember the sense of belonging and the sense of peace and the sense of calm, because in my mind, outside of that, I was lost. I had, everything was going around. It was kind of like, in movies when they show like someone like thinking all these things and it shows it like swirling around.
Yeah.
That's what it was like, for my life at that time. In hindsight, back then it was just like everything was an uproar. But now looking at hindsight, I was like, man, I get kind of dizzy thinking about it, So
yeah. That's kind of, I think that takes us kind of to the next step here, that, we've got the next, if you want to call it, question during this process. Jamie, I'll let you go ahead and lead into that.
Yeah, sure. What do you think caused you not to pursue a deeper relationship with Jesus at that time? What do you think caused the?
I think a lot of it had to do with, we moved to Florida. Well, we were living in Myrtle Beach at the time, because with my dad. And so the following summer, after my mother passed away, my mother met a woman and we moved down here to Florida. So now here I am again, uprooted again. I'm living in Florida, whole new school again, whole new people, whole new state.
That's hard.
And I had met her and her sons, but still, like, all of a sudden now I went from my mother to my dad. Now I'm living, with someone that I knew, but not really knew a whole lot. And so, in life, things just started happening. When I was around 15, I started dating a young fella. And fast forward a couple years, by the time I was 17, he had passed away just a few hours after we had talked on the phone. And so I think just, there's a lot of things that happened from the time I was 12 going on 13 to the time I was 17, especially the year of, 1994. There was a lot that went on. There was, he passed away. There was a decision that I made in my life that, just stuck with me for the rest of my life up until recently. That was more of a mental destruction as it was. At the same time, I started dating the guy that I'd met when I was in 4th grade and had a crush on when I lived in South Carolina. And so we had started a relationship, and that ended up being a whole, 15-year mentally abusive relationship that I dealt with from the age of 17 to 32. So I think it was just all these things happening. And the only moment that I had of goodness was when I was 12. But again, throughout that time, I don't really remember a lot of things coming up. Now, there were moments, obviously, where I met people, invited me to go to church. They spoke to me about God. There was one particular moment where I went and traveled for work. And this woman, we had conversations without me giving any a lot of details. And she was talking to me about God and bringing him into your life and stuff like that. And then she'd given me a devotional book. So when I got home, I read it, and I remember feeling calm again in sense. But then it went into this whole like, I've got to get a Bible. What is this about Revelations? And then I started getting in that, and not necessarily the word, of what it was supposed to. So there's always moments throughout in hindsight where you look back and you see, he was reaching out to me, and, maybe those were seasons that I needed him, because at that time, that was a way out of a relationship without actually getting out of the relationship. I put my head in the Bible or, research Revelation. So I think just experiences sometimes just gets in the way of the communication, and just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't really remembering when I was 12 going through all that. I just remember what I was going through, what I had been through, and how I felt. And I was just mad at the world, and then at some point it got to the point where it was like, okay, well, I must have done something really bad in my life to have received all this. And so the relationship that I'm in, this is what I deserve.
Yeah.
And that's what it boiled down to.
Did you find yourself searching for peace in other religions or philosophies? Did you find yourself like searching?
Yeah. So back in 1994, when I was 17 and started dating my ex, I don't want to name names. So started dating my ex. I had my very first anxiety attack out of the blue, had no clue where it came from, why. Of course, that just in a month period of time, my sister's trailer was burned, her home was burned down, got in a car wreck, my high school love passed away. There was something else that happened in my life. So it was like, constant thing. And I had my very first anxiety attack. And then it got to the point where it's, over the years, it kind of gradually grew. But I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know that, all these things. I just thought, I was just always on edge. And everybody used to always tell me, oh, Karie, you just have a lot of nervous energy, you know?
Mhm.
And so then as it grew older and all that, and then life stresses hit, obviously the anxiety got worse and worse. I've struggled with it since I was 17. But in 2017, it really took a turn. I'd had some other issues and losses that I was experiencing, and it really hit me hard. And it got to the point where I wouldn't even leave the house. And if I did, just to go get gas, I would medicate myself for it. And so, and then I was like, I can't live like this. I can't live not being, not going out and doing things. Not that I was a very extroverted person anyway. When I'm out and about, I'm extroverted, but if I have a choice, I like sitting at home.
She's a homebody.
Yeah, I'm a homebody. So at that time, by 2018, I started really looking into, because this lasted almost a year. And so I started looking into yoga, Buddha, crystal healings, breathing techniques, breathing coach, chakra balancing. Like I looked into that stuff, had the crystals, everything.
Yeah.
I probably didn't try everything in the world, but I did. I went there. But I found myself not really digging deep into it. I was just kind of learning the surface of it. And, and I would ask people and talk to people, and they would just say, Google it, research it. And I'm like, I don't want to do all that, but I did do it. And, and I'm not going to sit here and say that in the moment when I'm having an anxiety attack, that breathing didn't help. It got my breathing under control, whatever, but it doesn't give way to what the issue is and what the problem is.
Yeah.
And now,
that's a good statement, Karie. Say that again for people to understand that, because it's a really powerful statement.
Yeah. So these things are good. Not all of it, but breathing techniques, something that we do every day, involuntarily breathing. When you're having anxiety attack, when you're under stress, your body goes into that and your breathing starts to be contracted and quick. So breathing techniques to kind of get your breathing under control is good, but that's the only thing it's controlling is your breathing, right? And so it's not really getting down to the heart of where the anxiety is coming from. Why do you have anxiety? What can give me peace? Because it's only calming you down. It's not really truly giving you peace. You can do all the meditation in the world, and you can center yourself and look into yourself all you want. But the fact still remains that once you come out of that meditation, you come back into the world, it's still there. And then it will still hit you, and I've tried to explain anxiety all my life. It's just, your brain, your body just feels like there's imminent danger, and it just goes into this flight mode. And which is true medically, right? But at the end of the day, why are we doing that? Why is it that we can't find a sense of relief and peace within ourselves? We're all going to have stresses. We're all going to have certain fears, and we're going to have moments where we do have anxiety, but it should not be an all day, everyday basis, So anyway, I said it again in the long term.
No, that's good. No, I think that that's truth. And I think that there's people that are going to listen to this that need to hear that. They need to hear that you can do that, but it's a temporary fix for something. And you're not actually dealing with the root of the problem. And I mean, Jamie and I have talked about that before, just with health in general. Our society is not good at getting to the root cause of what's going on. Our society is consistently like, here's a pill, we're going to just mask it and cover it up. And we're not going to get down to the root and actually repair what's wrong. And what you're saying is that something deep inside of you needed to be healed, needed to be fixed, but it wasn't, it was a temporary fix, meditation, but it didn't, these breathing exercises, but it didn't give you a full, long satisfaction of, okay, I'm at peace now. Do you think, and I failed to add this into the question, but it is something we've talked about before. Do you think that during this time, from the losses that you've experienced and all of the different hardships, do you think that during that time you began to create like a protective mechanism around your heart, almost allowing your heart to become hard?
Yeah. And I mean, it's easy to do because you experience so many heartaches, you experience so many losses and so many friendships that hurt you, just life in general. And so what we tend to do is we tend to be like, okay, I've got to protect myself so that I don't get hurt like I did by this person, or I don't get hurt if I lose this job like I did that one, and it's really, it's actually hard to not build up, a wall around yourself, a wall around your heart, because that's what makes us feel like, and that's a natural thing. That's a human nature to do that. If you go outside and, a limb falls on you, next time you go out, you might wear a helmet. That's what we do. We put on protective helmets.
Yeah.
But, so it really hardened up. And the sad truth of it is that, yes, I'm saved and I'm about 4 months into it. And he is still breaking away piece by piece. And he knows the speed that he needs to heal me at. Of course, I'm over here like, just break in there and just make me well again. Lord, if you will, if it sure will, please make me clean. Like, that. But in reality, he knows that if he goes hardcore all at one time, I'm probably more likely to walk away from it. You know what I mean? From the, whatever, obviously I'll find my way back. I'll never leave him, but you know what I mean? He knows what I can handle. And, I've always been a very impatient person. And so he's trying to teach me, like, Karie, just a little bit at a time, Matter of fact, this week was a bit of a healing already. He broke away another piece and it's just wonderful,
He's so faithful to do that. And like you said, I know that I can say for certain, I've put walls up around my heart at times in my life to protect myself, because you go through those trials, you go through those tribulations, you go through the hurt that is always caused by other human beings. And unfortunately, that's what it happens in this world, because we live in a fallen world. But he comes in and he starts to just gently, and we talked about this just briefly on Sunday. It's like everything's defrosted, but there's still wounds there that have to be healed. And he comes along and he begins to heal them one by one, kind of like an onion, Jamie's used that analogy, just pulling back the layers little by little. So that kind of takes me to where, so Karie and I got in contact in 2020. I think 2020 became like this year for a lot of people to reconnect.
But in history before that, we both had left our jobs at different times that we worked together, so we kind of lost contact. So it's not like
that's where I was going with that. So I left the company in 2017 early on around May, because I was able to no longer have to work. We didn't need two incomes in our family, and our son needed me to be here to assist him so that my husband could pursue what he needed to for his career. So I made that leap and stepped out of the workforce. And you were in a totally different department. You'd gone into our sales team, and it wasn't long after that you kind of shifted over, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you shifted over to another company. And then after that, I don't know how long you were there, you decided to just kind of say, hey, I'm done with this.
Yeah, that was, you have those moments in your life where you think you're okay. Cause I had done all the new age philosophy stuff, researching. And I was like, oh, I'm better. I can actually, instead of working from home now, I'm good enough to go work in the office and be around whatever negativity and all that's out there. And because you do have to jump, head in first sometimes. So I did. And I mean, just about every day, I finally had an office. Those are things that I wanted my own office and, all that. And I'm sitting there, I've got, all these crystals surrounding my keyboard. I've got my essential oils going. I would shut the door and the window, and I'd do like a 15-minute yoga. I'd meditate. And there was a day where I got out of a meeting, and when I got back to my office, I was not screaming, but I was really loud, banging my hands on the desk so hard that everything was jumping up off of it. And that was the moment that I knew, this Karie has got to go. Like, this is not who I am, to be like this. And so I jumped ship, I put in my notice, and I was bye-bye,
You weren't long after me. It was the same year, wasn't it? 2017? Is that when you?
2018.
2018. Okay, so you were
Well, it was 2019. It was 2018 when I left the place that we worked at together. Yes, so you're correct.
Yeah. So, out of that, then 2020 hits, and we reconnected actually prior to the pandemic kind of shutting things down. it was actually, and I don't even think you know this, but it was my birthday that you reached out and texted me. And I don't know if you knew that it was my birthday or not on that day. But 2020 was a hard year for my family for other reasons, and not just because of COVID. And I was really going through it. That day had been really hard for me, due to relationship challenges within our family. And I get this text, and I was just kind of like, whoa. And out of that, I was like, hey, we're at dinner, but I'll call you when I get home. And, that conversation has turned into a rekindled, refreshed friendship.
Stronger.
Much stronger, much better.
Yeah.
And, through that, and it was just like Jamie and I, we reconnected, in
Same
2020.
year, right?
Yeah. So God has a plan. Totally. And it was just funny because when I think about it, I think that each of us have very strong political views, and we saw a lot of things taking place towards the end of 2020 we really didn't agree with our nation.
It was intense.
And that's how Freedom Wranglers started. Yeah.
That's why Freedom Wranglers started, is because we wanted to have that voice to be very opinionated, because we didn't have that platform on Facebook. We were getting shut down. We were getting like blocked, or everything was getting taken off Facebook every time I'd say something. So it was so refreshing to talk to Chanda about the same view. So you could tell, like, me and Chanda had talked about this in the past. We were like, yeah, we were pretty geeked up for that.
We were
pretty geeked up.
But listen, we all know every conspiracy theory has turned out to be fact recently. Yeah. So anyhow, we'll leave that there. If you don't know what we're talking about, well, too bad. Go back and listen to our other episodes. But
but we've taken a hard right turn. What you say?
We have. We've taken
a
hard
right
thing. Turn.
It
is
a good thing.
To. Yeah.
We need to. We need that.
Well, it's like we're in the midst of all that even till this day, and so in the break of it all, here are you two, and so I think it's a good thing that we have a podcast with two beautiful women that we can come to and listen about Jesus and listen about God and what he can do in our lives. That way we can get a break from all that other mess that we have to hear all day, every day.
Sister.
So yeah.
Thank you. That was and that that confirms what Jamie and I were saying. Is like we need to be a breath of fresh air. Freedom doesn't have to be recounting all of the garbage that the world is handing out. And so that's very encouraging. Thank you so much. Yeah. And so out of this, you and I decided,
try to be nice.
She's real sweet. You have no idea. But we decided, both Karie and I were like, we're going to get our concealed to carry. Now, she had already gone through the class and all this stuff, but we were taking like that whole step to go downtown.
Yeah.
Fill out the paperwork,
get
our pictures taken. And, so we're taking these kind of big steps, like thinking we're big girls, doing all that stuff.
Yeah. And that was only the second time that we had like
face to face
together, face to face for a good year and a half, 2 years, probably.
Yeah, it was. And, I think that out of that, during this time, I was able to really, open up and share my faith with Karie. She knew that I was a Christian. She knew I went to church when we worked together, but I didn't really go into a lot of detail. But this was an opportunity for me to kind of open up a little bit more during this time, because it has been, these past 3 years have been insane.
Yeah. I think you were just more unapologetic about it. You weren't afraid to really come out and say, you know what, this is, and it's not like you came to me and said, this is what I believe. It was just, you weren't afraid to make the post. You weren't afraid to talk about what he's done in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here I was on this end, like, well, and I was a huge cusser at the time. And, I was like, well, I don't want to have to like change who I am, blah, blah, blah. So I hope that you can accept me for, whatever. But then I found myself just, over the last few years, just when I would text, I would just, nope, backspace.
Yeah,
I try my best to not be that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no matter what you both believe, there should be a mutual respect there. And, I knew enough about God to respect her love for him and respect his love for her. So
And it was that kind of thing where I was like, she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, the F word, whatever. And I'm like,
sorry.
And it's so funny because okay, because it's so funny because I don't think I ever said to Karie, don't talk like that.
No.
I just never said anything. And, but she knew that wasn't my heart wasn't to say things like that. And so, out of that, there's just these little things that she was all of a sudden tweaking. And I was kind of like, huh, look at her, what's she doing? And then, but then she starts sending me these videos of this guy called Craig Brown on TikTok and then on Instagram. And if you are on Instagram and you're on the Christian side or on the Christian side of TikTok, you will have seen Craig Brown because he always says, stop. You got 3 minutes to pray or 3 minutes for this.
He'll sit there and he's like,
yeah,
you're still here.
And he's great. He's so great. And he just shares his heart and he's so on point with the words. And so all of a sudden she starts sending me these videos. And I'm like, all right, God, what you doing over there? And then she's like on Glorify the app and she starts, sharing little bits and pieces here and there of that. And we talked about God. We talked about these things, but your response was that you believe that there's something. Jesus was a good man, but you can't really buy into the fact that he's the Son of God and everything, there's an energy in everything. That was the response that you gave me.
Yeah. It's so weird to think about because in my mind, I think I was trying to conform to the external things around me. You know what I mean? Because that's what a lot of people in my environment around me, because I didn't hear much about it. And so it was just those moments in life where I say now that I was a wannabe atheist because I would even find myself every so often still doing now lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep, that whole prayer, because that's what my mom taught me. And that was the only prayer I ever knew. And so it was always those things where if I said his name in vain, it was, immediately in my head, it was, I'm so sorry, God, can you please forgive me? People didn't know that I did that, but I would do it. And I actually would try my version of what I call my version of prayer for people. When I would drive down the road and I would see a car wreck, I would immediately, please, dear God, I hope everybody's okay in there. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. So when I look back, there's little pieces. Matter of fact, I dated a guy years ago, and he says that one of the things that he remembers the most was me sitting there reading parts of the Bible to him. I remember doing that, but I was like, oh, okay, that's weird.
So and it's like he's always been there. And so like we fast forward to 2022. And I have this opportunity with our church to go to a place called Little Gasparilla, and I've shared about it on previous episodes, and you can hear those episodes and what happened. But the long and short of it is that there was a hurricane, and there was a group of people that are based in North Carolina, and they said, "Hey, we are going." Are they in North Carolina?
South Carolina.
I apologize. Yeah. Everybody's from South Carolina. God's doing something. Anyhow, they're called Spokes of Hope from South Carolina. And we were supposed to actually go and work with a totally different organization down there. And for whatever reason, I believe God was in it, they never contacted us back. So we ended up getting hooked up and connected with Spokes of Hope. And we went down there. Now, the unique thing about Spokes of Hope is that their ministry was birthed out of tragedy. It was birthed out of tornadoes hitting their hometown and hurricanes. And so they said, we want to serve. We want to go and be disaster relief, but with Jesus' heart, And the cool thing about them is that they don't care what your label is. And I say label, meaning denomination. If you believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that he died for your sins and he rose on the third day, you're in as far as they're concerned, and they're very open to people who are kind of on the edge of what do I believe being there. So we went and we ministered down there in October with a group of people from our church, and God laid it on my heart to go back. God said, you need to go back and you need to help put a promo video together for them to put on their website, to put on their YouTube channel. And I was like, okay, Lord.
The very next week.
The very next week. Yeah. It was, well, I think it was
Yeah.
about 10 days after I'd gotten back because I had to put some
Okay.
stuff in place. But it was quick. It was a real quick turnaround time. I was barely home and we were heading back down. And so I had said to Amanda, who's the youth pastor at our church, I said, you want to go back with me? And I had gone to our pastor and I'd said to him, because I'll believe in spiritual lines of authority. I believe in coming and saying, hey, I'm under your covering. You're my pastor. And this is what God's leading me to do. Will you pray with me? Do you support me? Do I have your blessing, kind of thing? And of course, Pastor Danny was all in. He was like, absolutely. And I said, well, I wanted to ask Amanda to come. And I know she's on staff.
Yeah.
That means both of us are gone on this day. And he's
Yeah.
like, go. I can't say no. You have to go do it. And I was like, wow, okay. So then I reached out to Karie round about the same, I think it was the same day I reached out to Amanda. And
I think it was before, because I didn't answer you, and then I got a text from you that said, "Hey, I have someone that's going with me," and I was like, immediate was like, "What?" I had been trying to ignore it, thinking, if I don't do anything with it, she'll just kind of like not ask me again, and then next thing I know, I get a text from her, and I was like, immediately I was like, what? And I responded before I even thought about it. I was like, well, I was going to go with you, and then I was like, how do I delete this?
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I had asked, but I wasn't going to press, just like I wasn't going to press that you needed to come to Jesus. I wasn't going to press this issue with you. I was like, if it's in her heart and God wants her to be there, he's going to make it happen. And sure enough, he did. But it had always been in both of our hearts to go and help on disaster relief. I know that was something that you and I were both very passionate about. And that was one of the reasons I was like, look, this is an opportunity. And I had asked for the first go around. I said, you won't come. And you were like, nope, not sure about that. Not now. And then I thought, well, it's a smaller number. Maybe she'll be in. Plus, you have photography skills and different things that I don't have that I could utilize. You had a drone you could fly. So we, end up going down there, and it's just us three girls. And I had already said to Amanda and John and to Pastor Danny and Jamie, I said, pray. I said, because I believe that this is the time that Karie is going to get exposed to the gospel. And this is her time. I'm believing her full salvation today.
Yeah.
And
I do remember that time, because that was the time, because Chanda asked me to come, but during that time, my husband lost his job, and we were in a very limbo state, and I'll just say we were being baptized by fire. I'll just say that because God was doing something, and it was painful. But when she told me that you were going, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a good thing. The Lord's going to work this out to be a really good thing.
That's it.
And so it was like an answer to prayer. Well, I know you're going to get into it.
Yeah. So we spent the first day there, just scooting around on a golf cart, filming stuff, doing things. We came back, and I think at that point, Shane, who is the head of Spokes of Hope, had just gotten back to the island. And you had an encounter, but it was brief. There were no words exchanged. What happened, Karie?
No. Well, so y'all had talked about how nice he was and all that, but he wasn't there when we got there. And we were all sitting at, I guess you would call it the headquarters.
Yeah,
that's where all the food and everybody would hang out. And, I found me a little seat by a pole where I could kind of hide behind the table and kind of just watch everybody, because that's what I like to do. I like to just watch everybody. And, honestly, at the time and this is bad to say, but I was sitting there thinking, I hope nobody asks me if I go to church or anything. You know what I mean? And because non-believer comes around, and that's the first thing you get hit with. It's like, do you go to church? Do you believe in God? Do you know if you're going to heaven or hell? And so I just kind of sat there, and next thing I know, everybody's like, oh, here comes Shane. And Shane comes walking up the steps, and he's all talking and having a good time, and it's hard to explain his exuberance, but he just has a presence with him.
He does.
And he got up to the top of the stairs, and I remember turning, I was looking to see Shane, and for a split moment we locked eyes, and he just kind of, in the midst of all that he was talking and laughing and joking, all of a sudden he got really quiet for a split second, and I remember turning away, and he just kept on going, and he ended up sitting across from me with you. And he was joking, and he'd look at me and laugh and joke and try to make me laugh. So I could tell that he was trying to, make me feel comfortable. So that was my moment, with him. And it was at that moment I felt awkward. I was like, what was that? You know, like, why'd you look at me like that? You know?
And I think now,
So,
you know, it was a divine encounter. It was a God
yeah,
moment, probably
yeah,
more so for Shane at that moment, because I believe he's a man that hears from God. And I believe that God was probably saying, this is somebody that needs me.
yeah,
And so, you know, he took us on an amazing tour around the island and showed us different stuff. And we encountered these different people telling different stories. But not once did anybody say, Karie, are you saved? Karie, what you doing? You going to church? Nobody. It was just, we were in the moment, just doing what we're doing. And we got back that night and we had some dinner. The Islanders brought us whatever. And then
The Islanders.
Man, I know. I follow their Facebook page. It's just nice to see the pictures.
yeah.
Anyways,
And me and Amanda went to the beach.
that's what I was going to say. You guys asked me if I wanted to go, and the Holy Spirit had just said to me, no, Chanda, you need to allow them to go. You don't need to be in the mix of this. And I know that that was God. And I was like, no, guys, I'm going to go get a shower and chill. And you guys went and had a conversation on the beach.
Yeah, at first I wasn't going to go just because I didn't know her very well. And I was like, what do I say to her? You know, I mean, I thought she was in her early 20s. I didn't know that
she's
so,
35, 36,
yeah,
36. She is. Yeah. Yeah.
Looking at her, you wouldn't know.
She looks young.
But we go down there and I don't even remember, we were looking at the sunset and it was just so beautiful, you know, even though there was red tide there and you coughing every time you turn around. But, you know, I just remember looking at sunset and I can't even remember how it came up. You know, maybe it was me saying something about look at the beautiful art, you know, God or something. I don't know. But, you know, I just came and I just asked her questions like, well, you know, how do you know, like he's, you know, that you're hearing from him or, you know, and she was very calm about it. You know, when she would talk to me, we didn't go in like really a lot of detail or anything like that. It was a very quick moment. And, I don't know, just hearing her talk about it, I don't know, it was kind of relaxing, you know? And I was like, then as we were walking back, I thought to myself, why was I asking the questions? You know what I mean? I couldn't understand like where that came from. Like, why am I asking her this question? I was like, well, you know, I just believe that God is everything. God is the universe. God is the energy. You know, God is everything, you know, which to me, he is everything. He's everything. He's my love. He's my provider. He's my protector. You know, he is everything to me, but not in the sense that I thought he was before. And, you know, and then we talked about Jesus and I was like, well, same thing that I've told you and everybody else, you know, I thought that he was a man that was raised to believe that he was the Messiah to cover up for his mother's infidelity, you know, all that stuff. And that he just lived a good life. And he taught everybody the way that you should live, you know, and it's unfortunate that he put himself on the cross. You know what I mean? And so those are kind of things that we talked about. And I remember when we got back, I was like, because I ended up picking a room where I was by myself. You know?
Yeah,
she did. Introverted Karie.
She took the big room, and it's okay because Amanda and I were used to bunking on bunk beds. In the previous visit to Gasparilla, we were in bunk beds, and anyways, we tend to laugh ourselves to sleep, so it was all good.
But I remember getting back, and I remember we had sat up and we all talked for a little bit, and I did feel a little bit of uncomfortableness just because I was like, I just had this small conversation and I couldn't quite make out why those questions had came to my mind or why I felt the need to ask her, because I'd already, you know, asked you a couple of things here and there, you know, throughout the years, but I didn't understand it. So part of that was me just trying to unravel like what was going on the inside of me to even want to ask someone I didn't know.
That's right. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. And that shows like with Amanda, she's definitely anointed. God speaks through her, and there is a calmness when you're around her that comes about. She's never an intense individual, and we've been working together since August. She's so, I know. That's her gift and calling though. And now you can see it. And so when I hear you say that, I'm like, oh, that's Amanda. That's the gifts God's given her. So, you know, we get up the next morning, and the next morning is going to be filming this video of Shane talking about Spokes of Hope, the vision God gave him, so on and so forth. It's a promo video that we're putting together. Little did we know that this promo video would lead to him sharing a story about a poem his father had written for him that his mom made sure that he got, not long before his father passed away. And it was really about how his father wanted him to be the best reflection of him that he possibly could. And I mean, we're all boohooing because for me, I'm listening to that. I'm like, that's what I want to be for Jesus. God, my Heavenly Father, I want to reflect him the best I can. Like literally, we're just like, I'm behind the camera, just tears rolling. I look at Amanda, she's wrong. Now, Karie, I'm like, I don't know why she's crying because she's been crying through over half this thing. And I'm thinking, well, maybe God's dealing with her. I don't know. So I'm going to
he ended
pass it off
he ended
you.
The interview with that. Yeah, he ended the interview with that poem, which by the end of the interview, we were all bawling. You know, even him. I mean, he was crying.
Yep.
But
so what was taking place in your heart and in your mind during that interview with Shane?
Well, you had a list of questions that you were asking him, and I can't remember which question it was. Every so often I go back and actually watch the interview because you sent it to me.
Yeah.
And because I do that because when that moment hits, I know exactly what moment it was for me. But there was a question that you had asked earlier in the interview, and I had a question as to, you know, in my mind that I wanted to ask him because, you know, I think it was kind of like, what do you need to, you know, what do you expect or what do you require for someone to volunteer with Spokes of Hope? And, you know, when he responded, he didn't really say much about the people that weren't Christians. And so I had this question in my head that I was like, okay, I want to ask him, but I'm not going to break into Chonda's, you know, interview. So I'm going to wait till it's over. So I just kept repeating the question over and over and over. And there was other times where questions popped up and I'm like, no, this is the one that's important to me. And so I don't know if anyone else has ever done that when you're in a meeting or something like that, and you have a thought that comes up, you just keep repeating it, you know? And so I was doing that. And then you got to, I think it was like the second or third question to the end. And it was one of the, I think, something about the top 3 things that you've taken away from, you know, the good things or whatever from that down here in Little Gasparilla. And, you know, he said his first thing, he said his second thing. And then his third answer was answering my question to the T. And I knew, and I was behind one of the cameras, like sitting there, so I couldn't just look, you know. And so I just started crying, and I knew that it was coming. So I quietly got up and I knelt down in, I think the kitchen was right there by us. So I knelt down in there and I was crying, and I was like, all right, Karie, get yourself together, you know, because I wanted to hear the interview. I cleaned everything up, went back, make sure I wasn't sniffling because I sniffle all the time. And it was after everything was done, we stopped the interview and everything like that. We were talking about it, and then about us all crying, like, what's wrong with us? We're all crying, you know. And for some reason, I felt the need to explain why I had cried earlier, just a couple questions prior to the end of us, you know, to the end of the interview. And I don't know why, but I just felt the need to share that. And it was literally me saying, I think God was answering my question through you so that I wouldn't have to ask it. And he wasn't preaching to me, but he was telling me all about the love of Jesus, and, you know, and how you think I'm something because I'm here doing an interview because I have Spokes of Hope. I'm nothing without him. He's the one that does it all. And the whole time he's sitting there talking, or he's standing there and he's talking to me, he looks at me and he starts explaining how, you know, the devil and Satan's making you question. He makes you question everything. He's always putting those doubts in your mind. He's even making you question as we speak. And literally as he was speaking and talking about Jesus, I was in my head talking to myself about who I thought Jesus was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was that. And then by that time, I think Miss Jane had came in. And so I had 3 women. I was surrounded by 3 women with Shane in front of us. And 3 of these people I just barely knew. I just met the day before. And next thing I know, Shane's like, let's just pray. Let's just pray. And so we get around in a circle, and I'm feeling awkward because I'm always awkward when, you know, there was a big group of people praying. And then he asked Chonda to lead the prayer. And next thing I know, I'm like crying like a kid again. And I'm repeating after her. And then I'm giving myself to Jesus and accepting him as my Lord and Savior. And honestly, I can't say that at that moment I felt great. I was scared. I was confused as to what just happened. Why did I do that? Did I really truly mean it? And then there was this whole, you know, all my life, it's always been, if I make a decision, I lose someone. And I'd always heard the saying that, you know, God will take those things out of your life that aren't good for you, you know.
Mm.
And I always thought, I think even while you were down the Little Gasparilla the first time, I think I even sent you an audio message, you know, and saying, you know, I'm just scared that I'm one of those things that he takes away. I'm just scared that, you know, my husband's one of the things that he takes away. You know, I didn't want anything taken away from me for making that decision. And I even expressed that as we walked back to the headquarters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that day I was kind of bewildered a little bit. I was like, what? And then the whole way home, we're all talking about it, you know, and stuff about Jesus.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me, you know, like, he'll start to show himself to you more and more and more. Just stay with it, you know. And then we got back, and I think we spoke outside for almost an hour and a half.
We did,
you know?
yeah. We'd driven 5 hours in the car talking about it, and then spent some time outside. And you know, the question that I asked Karie that day was, you know, Karie, if you died tonight or today on the way home, where would you spend eternity? Would you be in heaven? And she said, well, I hope so. And at that moment for me, it was like, no, this isn't a hope so, maybe so moment. This is a no so moment. I want you to know for certain. And so for anybody that is listening, you know, right now to this, you can know right now, this very day, where you're going to spend eternity, because all you have to do is say, Lord Jesus, come into my life. I believe you're the Son of God. It's that easy. It doesn't have to be long and flowery, you know, and it's just admitting, hey, I'm a sinner. We're all sinners. That's the truth. We're all born into sin. And so God has really done a transformation in Karie's life. Now, you know, there's just been so much that's transpired in her life in a very short window. So, you know, Jamie, you got anything to add here? I don't want to keep going.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just wondering if you have a favorite Bible verse now that all this is happening. And if so, what is it?
Okay. I have actually a few. And when I say few, I mean 3. Well, I do have more that are up on my war room wall, but I have one. I'm still trying to remember books, chapters, verses, and all that. So I wrote them down for everybody, so I wouldn't forget.
Oh, look at you!
You're so prepared.
Well, they're already written down anyway. So, but I brought them out and had them written down so that I wouldn't forget. Awesome. But the very first one of the things that I have struggled with is anger, my temper. Okay. I've always told everybody, oh, I've always had a really bad temper. You know, I just get mad. My stepmom used to always have this thing that says, you know, you and your dad are just alike. You get mad if your shoes don't tie right. And I was like, well, you're right, because they should have tied right the first time, you know? And that's not really a good explanation of how quick my temper is, how angry I was on the inside. So the very first verse that I ever wrote down and stuck up on my wall was Proverbs 14:29. And it says, people with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. And I know that when I look back in hindsight, all those moments that I just flew off the handle and just showed my booty, I felt so bad and so guilty that it was like I had my head down, you know, the next day, every time, because it truly shows how foolish you are. You know what I mean? Like So anyway, and then the next one, I kind of go hand in hand. My anxiety is something that I've dealt with since I was 17. We already spoke about that. But actually, before I ever read it, I heard it on The Chosen. And it's Matthew 6:34. And the version that I chose, because there's different translations, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. And I thought, you're so right, because I can't do anything about tomorrow, you know? And then there's Matthew 6:27, and it's also in Luke 12:25. And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to your span of life? And I think back to all these years, all the moments and hours that I spent being anxious and worrying about stupid stuff, worrying about the conversation that I'd had yesterday. What did I say? Did I say anything wrong? I should have said this, you know, I didn't get my point across. Then I'm like texting, you know, trying to confirm, you know, hey, just so you know, when I said this, I didn't mean, you know.
I remember those conversations.
Yeah,
I remember them.
And I'm not saying that they're ever going to always go away.
No.
You know, there's that, because, you know, there are times where you do say the wrong thing. You need to correct it. But, you know, at the end of the day, when you think about all the time that you spend worrying about very minute things, if you add it all up, that's more than half your span of life that you've lived so far. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I am 46, about to be 47. And I think from 30 years ago, from the time I was 17 up till now, all the time that I spent worrying, it's just absolutely ridiculous. As my dad would say, ridiculous.
But that's so true. And, you know, those are awesome verses, Karie. They're really, they're powerful. And I think that it's not just relevant for somebody who's got anxiety. It's relevant for all of us, you know, or anger issues. And, you know, I want to say just a couple of things. The first thing is that I know that, you know, you did come back with a lot of fear. You came back and you were like, what's God gonna take from me? And he's not taking anything from you. He's giving you so much more. But at that moment in time, because of past experiences, and you thought that it was God, if you like, that you were losing things, and it was like a punishment thing, you know. And instead, he's from my perspective, he's given you so much joy and peace and comfort and different things. And I mean, none of us have arrived yet, so it ain't over yet. He's still working on all of us. And there's a little song that, you know, we used to sing in church when I was a kid. He's still working on me, you know, the way things ought to be, something about the sun, moon, and stars. I used to sing it, but I can't remember. Anyhow, but the other thing is you have a spiritual birthday or eternal birthday, whichever you want to call it. What is it? Because you said like we're about 4 months in. So what's your birthday,
it was
girl?
November 3rd, 2022 is my Jesus birthday.
Nice.
Come to Jesus birthday. That was a scary day for me. I'm not going to lie. You know, it's not, everybody's experience is different. And it was scary for me because I got home and there was a day where I was like, I don't know if I'm strong enough to carry the word, you know? And there was a song from someone that came on and I was like, Jesus, you're telling me that I'm a fighter. I am strong and that you believe in me. And, you know, he just keeps speaking to me in different ways. When I look back in hindsight, y'all, there are two moments that really stick out in my mind. And there was one day where I had called into work and I was up there by myself at this national park, you know, because it was on a weekday, there was nobody there. And I was crying. And I remember I just looked up and I said, God, if I'm supposed to leave him, please tell me, show me that this is what I'm supposed to do. And I kneeled down because I was sitting in the chair. So I kneeled down to my knees, put my head down to my knees, and I opened my eyes. And there was this little cross pendant out there by itself. No necklace, no people, no nothing. Just me, the chair, and the pendant. And that was in 2008, I believe. Yeah. So,
what you're saying is that
he's always there.
Yeah. But like, really from the time you were 12, when you said yes to Jesus, regardless of other decisions you've made, he made a promise to you to never leave you nor forsake you, didn't he?
Absolutely. Yes. There you go.
Always been there, following you, chasing you, saying, Karie, I'm still here. I know you think you know what you believe, but it's all good. It's all good. I'll get you in the end. And, you know, he's
long suffering. God is long suffering.
And, you know, with the anxiety part, he's always there for that too. Right. So, you know, there was a night where we were camping and I was having a bad anxiety attack. Everybody's asleep. And I tried everything that I knew of that I spoke about earlier. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to pray. So I pray to God to take it from me because I just want to enjoy the weekend with my husband. And within about 10 minutes, I was asleep. I mean, you know, and I remember even telling, you know, my husband about it the next day. So, you know, it's easy to see it now, but then it was just like, okay, you know, and so I just found myself like just really wanting to reach out when I needed him, not when he needed me. And he needs us just as much as we need him. And that's all we need to do is take him in. And, you know, I still deal with some anxiousness, but it's nowhere near nowhere near what I've experienced.
Yeah, and he's going to remove that through time. You know that, and we know that. And what is just so beautiful about our relationship with God, and you said it, he needs us, and he needs us because he wants to have a relationship with us. He wants to commune with us. He loves us so much, and we don't fully understand the love of God until we really surrender to him. I know that's been my experience. How about you, Jamie?
Yes, it's total surrender. Like it just like I was saying, while you were going through that process and my husband lost his job, it was like, still, even so, you have this doubt that wants to come over you. And it's like, Lord, why is this happening to us? I mean, we're believers, Lord.
Right.
But then there's a verse that says, do not be surprised about the fiery darts that come your way.
That's right.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even as a Christian, you have things coming at you, but they're not as the world would respond. It's more like, we're going to get on our knees and pray. So it's a different perspective.
That's it.
So you're still going to have trouble.
Yeah, he didn't promise a perfect worldly life. So
that's right.
That's right. He didn't say it would be easy. He actually said you will have trouble. I mean, Jesus just said it flat out. You're going to have trouble. So
spiritual, it's a fire baptism.
It is. And it doesn't and it doesn't mean that as soon as we accept Jesus that we're not going to experience relationship issues. We're not going to experience financial challenges. We're not going to experience loss. It still happens because we live in a fallen world.
That's right.
And I know that's one of the questions that you asked me. You were like, yeah, but why? And I said, I don't have the ultimate answer as to why you lost these loved ones. But the answer that I do know is that we live in a fallen world. And because of sin, it has caused everything in this planet to be corrupted. Where we were made perfect, Adam and Eve were made completely perfect, to have no, sickness, nothing inside their DNA. As soon as they sinned and sin entered in, it made the humankind fallible. It made us vulnerable to those things. And so it's not that God has caused it, but he gave us that free will. And so sin is the number one cause of the stuff that we see. To me, that's the answer to all the problems in the world. It's just downright sin because of the enemy. But it
makes us overwhelmingly wanting him to come to take us up out of this world too.
For me to for me to live as Christ, but to die is gain. Paul said that. And so being a believer, knowing Jesus, man, that's the greatest thing I could ever gain is eternity.
It really is.
And so I look at that and I'm like, come on. Just as we get ready to kind of wrap this up, because your testimony, I know there is so much more that's going to come to light that we're going to have you back on to share other things that God's done in your life. So I just want to go back. All the crystals, all the tarot cards, Buddha, all the different things. You still have them in your house?
They're gone. I do have some crystals, the natural ones, or they're all natural. Obviously, they're still part of God's artwork, right? But they're not what they never really meant that to me anyway. Because to me, it was like, well, they don't really work, so I just kind of put them away in a box and they're just there. But I did pray over them the other day to remove any kind of evil condensation or anything like that. Kept the one when we went to Ireland. I found a quartz, actually in Dingle, Ireland, from the ground. So I was like, I'm keeping that one. But yeah, I did do a blessing prayer over them, because they are still God's artwork.
Yeah, but
they're not healing to me. They never,
that's right.
Here I am. I'm 3-4 years into this. Well, I'm not now, but 3 to 4 years into the new age stuff, and I'm not healed.
Yeah,
right. Crystals didn't hear me.
There you go. Yeah, the tarot card
that chakra balancing didn't balance anything.
Yeah.
I'm still like in a whirlwind.
So the reality is that you had a God-shaped hole in your heart that all of those things just didn't fit. They couldn't fill it. And so that's why none of it worked. But as soon as
you can't put a star in a square.
That's right. And as soon as you insert Christ in, it's like, oh, it fits. And then other stuff.
And that happened immediately, not almost immediately after we got back from Gasparilla. Within about, I would say, less than a week, I kept being drawn to that shelf.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to get rid of it.
It was when you text me, you're like, by the way, I just got rid of all this stuff. And, you know, when I went to go sell the tarot cards, God was like, no, what are you doing passing that on to somebody else?
Well, I did sell the tarot cards.
Sold
I did
one
sell
set,
those. But I sold a few sets, threw one away, but then I was like, oh, you know, I need to sell the singing bowl and the little Buddha statue that I had that I did not use to like rub his belly. I like little stuff, you know, like little perfume bottles. So I bought them.
Because for those of you who don't know Karie, she's a little bit.
I'm 4'10", which is the Ziggy that she talks about me over the thing. But
she's
I went to go sell those. I was like, oh, I need to sell those because nobody grabbed it. And then it was like, I just immediately had this thought that came in my head that said, it just clearly said, you know, don't spread it. Stop spreading it. And so I literally put the Buddha in the singing bowl and I took it outside to the big trash can and I threw it in there and Buddha just exploded into a bunch of tiny pieces. And I remember going back to the trash can looking in. I was like, what is that noise? And I opened it up and it was all in little pieces. And I just remember smiling and I just shut it and walked off. I was like, okay, one more off, you know. So obviously, I probably have more things in there that I probably don't even remember. I just won't know until I come across it. You know, I didn't have a whole bunch of stuff anyway.
I'll say
we just don't have a lot of space.
Yeah, and if you do come across stuff, what I have done in the past when I've had things that God's revealed to me, you need to get that out of your house. We burn it. We just have a good old burning session outside the house, and we're like, okay, it's gone. I burnt T-shirts. Like I think somebody had bought me a T-shirt. I think it had "Kiss" on it. I was like, no, you know. And there was a game that we had played at one point, and games can really be off. And this game wasn't like a Ouija board or something like that, but it was a game about lying. And I believe that when you play a game of trickery or you play a game of lying to try to deceive people, it opens up the door for the great deceiver to enter in or allow his minions to come in. So anyhow, we burned all that. We had a good old burning session.
It wasn't like the burn that we had at your house with the fireworks, right?
No, listen, y'all. After the 4th of July, we had Jamie and her family.
I had to bring that up just for a second.
Just for a second. It's crazy. We'll tell y'all. It's a good giggle. We had Jamie and her family come for the 4th of July this past year, and it was awesome. We had a great time. And we thought that everything was out in the fireworks, and so her beloved put everything in the trash, but evidently something still had a little spark. Yeah. And
well, Justin did say, don't we need to water this down? Because we do,
you know, but the Scottish guy is like, whatever.
He's like, no, it's okay. It's in the trash. No worries.
John doesn't even want to celebrate the day because, you know, it's like highlighting that they lost and all this stuff. So, but anyways, we get up the next day and Jamie and her family have gone to St. Augustine to do all the great tourist things. And I go to empty John went to empty the trash and he goes outside. He goes, John, come here. And I walked out and then no word of a lie. That big old trash can that Duval County gave me, it was melted to the ground. There was nothing but cans.
It melted.
And it was
the big green one?
Yeah. And here's the thing. It is scary because it was right next to our garage and those angels were working overtime. They were like, put it out, because it's right next to our bedroom too. And I was like, we could have gone up in smokes and not even known it. But God protected us, and we laugh about it now because, you know, there's a good old patch of grass that's all burned up and plastic into it. But, you know, God is sovereign. He protects us and takes care of us. So it was
needless to say, Justin did get a new trash can. He went out in the middle of the night.
Bless his heart.
I had to get your husband to call him because for some reason he wasn't getting my calls, and your husband's like, Justin,
where you at, buddy? He's like, I'm at Lowe's. I'm coming back. Bless his heart. And he didn't have to do that, but you know, it was crazy. But that's not the kind of burning we had. So anyhow, but
no, I was just gonna ask.
That's not the fire baptism you want, huh?
No. That was not, girl. It was not. That was definitely the angels working overtime that night on 4th of July. But I do have a question. I was just gonna ask you: do you have any advice for new believers, or people who are or people that you're witnessing to, you know, about how to come to Christ? Do you have any advice for new believers?
So I'm still new in my new believer thing, so I don't want to put myself too high on the pedestal there, but I think first and foremost, we just need to be patient with ourselves. New believers, we need to be patient. You know, it's hard for me to say that because I'm very impatient, and the way that I've just gone in there and just stuck my head in that Bible and just read. It's hard for me to say that because I just want to absorb it all and know it all. And the second advice is read the Bible.
Yeah.
If you want to know Jesus, you read the Bible. And
Amen.
one of the biggest things that have stuck with me, and Chanda, this was your advice to me day one, and that was, day one after I got home, because I told you about how I was like watching all these pastors and stuff like that, and you said just make sure whatever you hear them say, it's backed up with the Bible, it's backed up with God's word. And so if you read the Bible, you'll be able to discern what people are saying. And we had a later conversation, that it did happen. And then you came out and said one reason why you didn't like that pastor. And I was like, well, I haven't listened to him in 2 weeks because, I didn't like what he said. So that is, that's actually one of your advices that I give people. And I would say that if there's anything in your past that you are angry, I didn't learn until a few weeks ago that it wasn't my mom that I was angry with. It was actually God. I was actually angry at God. I was angry at him for taking everybody away from me and all the losses and everything. And it's okay to be angry with God. He's okay with that. He already knows you're angry with him. That's why he's been reaching out to you, right? So express your anger. Let him know why you're angry every instance. Ask him for peace for that anger, for every instance that you're angry with him about. Pray for him to show you the moments during those times that he was there, because I can tell you through every moment, I can tell you where he was at in every one of those. And so, just pray about that, and just let him show you the moments, let him show you where the peace is at, and let him just overwhelm you. And I don't mean that in a bad overwhelm, like just pour his grace and his mercy all over you and his peace, and you'll find it. And just, if you don't have someone, like Chanda or someone in your life that you have to lean on to ask questions to, find somebody, go to the nearest church, ask the pastor. And that goes for people that aren't new believers yet, but they're kind of curious and they're on the fence, go to a church, talk to a pastor, have questions so that you can make a more informed Christian decision as to how and why and where and when. And if you get there and the pastor acts like he doesn't want to have anything to do with you or anything like that, or you maybe just don't feel a good feeling with him when you go there, like Jesus said, well, walk out and dust the dirt off your feet and go find another one. So I would say for the ones that aren't believers yet, if you've tried everything and it hasn't worked, try God. He'll show you who he is. He did me. It might have taken a while for me to get it, but he'll show you. And when he starts showing you, start taking that to heart and start doing more. And I would say also, even if you're not a new believer yet, read the Bible. Read it. Make your own decision and your discernment from that. Just read the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, because by the end of it, you'll probably end up believing it.
Yeah, because you how can you judge something if you haven't even read it, if you haven't even opened it up before?
And I judged it. I would always say, oh, well, in the Bible it would do this, and then I'm like, I go on Google and look at it, and I'm like, oh, yes, But I do remember like with me and you, I would tell you, I would be like, oh, I do remember in this piece it said that, and it was like little tiny pieces, because I look back in an old Bible that I have. Yes, I had Bibles. I even carried it for a long time. I even kept one on my nightstand. And so anyway, when I look back, there's all these highlights, and I don't remember making the highlights. But there was a moment in my life where I was called to read it and make highlights, but I couldn't tell you anything that it said until now.
Yeah. And that's it, is that, those are great key points there, Karie. It's, read the word of God, test it for yourself, see what it really says. Don't just go off of what someone else is telling you. Get in there and read it. Don't make a judgment call. And the other thing I would also say is, if you're a person like me and you have a friend or a loved one that's not following Jesus, just pray for him. Just be there. Don't make judgments. Don't criticize. Don't put them down when they're not doing the things, because what that's going to do is that's just going to push them further away from Christ. And what you're trying to do is draw them into his love. And you should be exuding his love to those individuals. And you should be showing them that Christ is in you. And so you're actually Jesus is reaching people through you. And that for me, listen, if I had come to Karie and I beat her over the head with the Bible, we would be nowhere today.
Oh yeah, I would have walked away. And I have done it in the past. Yeah.
Bible
not with you, but
no, with other people. Bible thumping never gets you anywhere. It doesn't. And I think I'm going to make a t-shirt now that says try God. Got questions? Try God. Let's just make some shirts that say that, because I really think it would be such an unbelievable conversation starter in the middle of a supermarket, those kinds of things, because it's like, got milk? Well, try God, I mean, so.
Well, and that's another thing with new believers. I would have to say that as new believers, we're so excited, we're learning and all this, and we just want to spread it and tell people about it. And I would say that for me, that's probably been the hardest thing for me, is trying to find that happy medium, because I'm excited about it. I want to tell my family and my friends what I've learned and what I feel and what I know. And it's just like, oh, I want to talk about it, but it's not because I want to talk about it to make them do anything, because my family believes, they just may not be walking the path that I'm walking. But for me, it's like, okay, do I text and send this? No, because then, so for me, it's hard for me to find that happy medium. So,
well, how many times did I text you Bible verses?
Never. I think maybe once, a long time. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I don't remember. We talked about God. We talked about your belief, but you never talked to me about it. You always talked about him in the sense of what he's doing in your life. And, I think I'm a visual person. So visualizing and watching it happen with you. And then Craig comes along out of the blue, like just out of the blue, it's like never even heard of the man. Yeah. And, he's so passionate about it. And, first I was sharing it with you because I was like, hey, kind of wanting to see what you had to say about what he was saying,
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, that's really good. And then next thing you know, I'm like sharing it with everybody else on Instagram, on Facebook. And because I was like, even though I wasn't a believer at the moment, I was believing in what he was saying, because he was just, I like this Bible time,
That's it.
I like his personality. Yeah. So,
and God came at you from multiple angles, and that may be what's happening to somebody who's listening today. God may be coming at you from multiple angles. You might be listening to Freedom Wranglers and be thinking, this is me. He just keeps, coming in. And so what we would say is, if you are at that place in your life where you're ready to surrender it all, just ask him into your heart. John 3:16 and 17 are some of the most powerful verses, and they're some of the most well-known verses in the world. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whosoever will believe in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. But God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but that through him that the world might be saved.
That's right.
He's not here to condemn us. He loves us. He cares about us. And so that's the message we want to convey to you. So if you decide you're going to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior today, would you please email us at freedomwranglers@gmail.com, because we want to celebrate with you. We want to encourage you, that all the angels are rejoicing.
Yeah. And maybe you have some questions that you want to have answers to, and you're a little too timid or don't really want to go into a church or hunt people down to answer that question, but you've listened to the podcast, you hear them and know how they feel and how they speak and what they know. So just email them and ask them questions. I'm pretty sure you two would be happy to answer any questions and help someone through.
If you confess with your mouth the Lord
longer.
Jesus and believe in thine heart that God rose him from the dead, that shall be saved.
That's
Come
it.
on now.
That's it. So, and we are definitely here. Everybody needs discipleship, and everybody needs a mentor in Christ. And so I have people that mentor me. I have people that I mentor. And so that's what it's about. It's about growing. And so as you're a little further along in your faith, then you're able to help others. So, we're here, Freedom Wranglers are here to answer questions. We're here to guide and direct and to help you grow in Christ. And the other thing I will say is a great resource is the Bible recap. If you aren't sure where to begin in the Bible and what it all means, grab that Bible recap and just start. And there's a podcast that goes with it on iTunes and Spotify. It's on all different platforms. There's even a website,
has the video version.
Yep. So Tara Lee Cobble is her name, or TLC, as she referred to herself this morning. And I thought that was really cute. So,
not the group from back in the day.
Yeah. So, but anyways, guys, Karie, we're so excited for you. God has blessed you, and we are blessed to know you.
Very excited.
We're excited for you. Can't wait to see where he takes you and have you back on to share about new things that God's doing in your life, how he's using you, different things like that. So thank you so much for coming on. It's just been such a blessing.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. It was a privilege. Thank you so much.
Definitely. You let Jesus shine today. And that's the key. That's why we're here, is to let Jesus shine. So, well, Freedom Wranglers, we're going to wrangle it on out of here. We are so glad you joined us today. Adios.
Bye, y'all.